95% of your success comes from getting your topic right. I say this all the time, and people are like, well, Professor Stuckler, that's well and good, but how do I go about finding a winning topic that's going to deliver that success? The challenge is you're often expected to figure out your research topics all on your own, or maybe a supervisor hands you one and you might feel uncertain if it's a good topic, if it's going to publish well, or if you're going down a dead end. But not anymore today, because by the end of the session, I'm going to leave you with a system that you can use now and forever to help you consistently hone in on winning topics and tap into your greatest power and strength as a researcher in choosing what to focus on. If you're new to the channel, I'm Professor David Stuckler, and FastTrack is the support that I wish I would have had when I was starting out and even when I was on the tenure track as a professor, because so often I was just winging it. I didn't work from a system. I was kind of groping for stones to cross the river. I was fortunate to benefit from a lot of fantastic mentors along the way, and I did, in a way, win the supervisor lottery, but not everybody does. And so with FastTrack, I've tried to make the informal logic that I've handed down to my mentees as a professor in my time at Harvard, Oxford, and Cambridge. I've tried to take that informal logic and make it explicit and accessible to everyone, no matter where you are in the world. 100% valuable and 100% free right here on this channel. Before we dive in today, I do want to mention our quick tip as ever. And that quick tip is about supervisor alignment. And it's something that people gloss over. You probably should have done your due diligence if you're, say, in a PhD program or you're working in some other relationship with a supervisor or mentor. You really need to have at least done a quick audit and know what they're working on and what's important to them and how they think about research. If you are doing something that misaligns with them methodologically, theoretically, or in terms of topic itself, you are setting yourself up for friction. Is that insurmountable? No, but I do find it makes things a lot harder. So what's something very quick that you can do today is something I call a 5-minute supervisor audit. And I'm amazed consistently that people haven't done this, because it's sort of, once you do it, you're like, oh, that's obvious, I should have done that. So let me show you, if I was going to kind of ego Google, go into Google Scholar, go find somebody's profile. So you can just search their name. So for example, if you search my name, you're going to see their profile pop up here. And go into the profile, and you'll see articles, citations, who they're cited by. I want you to go into, you'll see their greatest hits, because it's going to be stacked kind of at the top. And let me make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see without you guys going blind. Okay, hopefully you can see this a little bit. There we go. So you can see the top papers here running at the top. You can see helpful stats about kind of where they are in the academic hierarchy in terms of like H-index. Don't worry about the metrics. These are like the deer's antlers for academics. But you'll also be able to see a couple things, right? If you're trying to publish in high-impact journals and your supervisors haven't, well, you're asking somebody to train you to do something that they themselves have not achieved. Again, not impossible, but risky. The other thing is, if you see, what I want you guys to do here is sort this by year. Let me get out of this, go back to articles. Sort this by year. And you know, another thing I sometimes see is people are saying, well, they haven't published recently at all. So if you see, like, their last publication was 8 years ago, and this happened with a researcher I work with, well, she gets frustrated that that supervisor doesn't feel time pressure to publish and is not moving things along. It's like, well, they've kind of checked out of the game. So, but what I do is I encourage you to look at some of the recent papers, and I'll see kind of where they're at, what they're thinking about, what's a priority to them. This is really, it's just an objective way that's going to help you calibrate your expectations and look for fit. And be honest with yourself. If there's not a fit, you may need to think about diversifying your support if you're not getting what you need. But again, this will save you a ton of time, headache, and help you figure out ways to avoid potential frictions along the way. All right, with that, I want to just kind of welcome everybody. Welcome back. I know a lot of you are watching from around the world, so really, really great to have you with us. And again, if you're on Team Replay, do let me know. And I always go back afterwards and look at all the comments that are here, and I personally read and reply to all of them. And if you could share with us, just hit like. That helps the algorithm reach other people who might need this content, might be struggling with their topic, and wouldn't otherwise benefit. I really appreciate it and appreciate your support in our communities. So what I want to do is I want to share a whiteboard to draw how we're going to break it down, this process of finding your topic, and more than that, establishing it and validating it so you can know it's good, into 2 broad phases. And some of you, if you already have a topic, this is just going to be a good way to stress test your topic. If some of you are struggling for a topic, this is going to really help you, and you'll kind of identify where you are in this math. I'm also going to show you where you can inject AI into your workflow to help you here. So give me 2 seconds, and let me just share my screen once again. I'm going to pull up a whiteboard. I find a lot of the researchers who I work with are quite visual, and so this really helps them. So 2 seconds. I'm just manipulating my screen here so that I can get this up on the board. And in the meantime, guys, we're going to have time for Q&A as ever towards the end. So let's come here and okay, we're going to share a screen. Okay, this should show up on the screen now, guys. All right, here's our whiteboard with our handy app, Miro. All right, so the first phase in getting your topic right is you need to get a good topic neighborhood. So we'll call this phase 1. And we do that with our convergence method. So I'll just type this out, find your topic neighborhood, and we're going to use the convergence method. And so what I mean, you need to kind of figure out what field, what ballpark you're playing in. A lot of you might have a general idea. So this is, sometimes people will come to me and say, oh, I'm interested in gender inequality, or I'm interested in, post-crisis reconstruction, or I'm interested in, like certain kinds of gene therapy, right? It might be very, very broad, and that's okay. But what I want you to do, you're going to have to narrow this down later. And this on its own, this is not a topic, right? You can see that this is going to be hopelessly broad. And what I find with this is kind of one of the big failure modes I find with people on topics is that they have something that's too broad and too poorly defined. They go in and they try to do a lit review on something like this, and it's just endless. Right? It's really unclear. They don't know where they're going. This is a recipe for getting lost. So some people think they get to phase 1, it's like, oh, I've got this, I've got a topic. No, you don't have a topic. You've got a very vague neighborhood, and you haven't even honed in on it well enough. So here's how I want you to think about things with your topic with our convergence method. So you really have 3 concentric circles that you want to find the sweet spot on. You want to first and foremost, and this is really important because I see people drift from this all the time, is you want to make sure it's something you're passionate about, something that gives you energy. If you're starting off with a topic, neighborhood, or area that just feels like a drag, you've got a problem. You need to be almost that annoying person who's at a party on Friday night who just wants to talk all about what you're doing. And I remember I was so nerdy as a grad student, I was really interested in needle exchange programs. These are programs that provide clean needles to drug users, highly politically contested, but they work. And I was that nerdy person talking about these needle exchange programs on Friday night at parties. All right, nerds will rule the world, so all are welcome here. But pick something that you are passionate about. And commonly what I see happen is people get feedback and they get pulled into a topic or a different direction, something they're not passionate about. You're just injecting more friction into your own research system. So don't lose sight of that. And it's amazing. I talk to people. It's like, why did you choose that topic? It's like, somebody just told me to do it, but they don't really love it. It just turns into a chore. And doing research is a long game. You're just going to run out of steam if you don't get energy from thinking about what you're wanting to do, what you're wanting to show. So passion. All right. Second thing. This is not the time to win a Nobel Prize for most of you. We want quick wins. I love low-hanging fruit. And so I want you to do something that's feasible. So this is not the time to do a big, if you can avoid it, avoid primary data collection. Sometimes it's the only way to answer your research question. That's okay. But it's riskier. right? There's so many things that can go wrong with primary data collection. You get bad responses, you don't get enough responses, it's too expensive, it's high variance for the potential payoff. So I like you to do things that are more on the feasible side. And again, be honest with yourself. How feasible is this? Things like a lit review, well, that's very feasible, is within your control. Things like a randomized controlled trial, much more difficult to implement. If you could do instead reevaluate an existing randomized controlled trial, much more feasible, similar kinds of payoff. So there's certain areas that are going to be in designs of research that are going to be more feasible than others. The other thing that you need to look for is a debate. So you need to see that there's some activity in your field going on. And, and you're like, great, Professor Steckler, how do I do that? Well, you can see that in just scoping out Google Scholar. And this is why I like Google Scholar rather than AI searches, because Google Scholar is going to optimize around kind of, well, partly relevance to you, but also around citations and recency. So debate is very helpful on this. Now, if you have something very broad in this topic neighborhood, that does not a topic make. You probably need to connect it to something else. And the kind of in the core of our research, you might have some variable affects something else. Right? This is kind of the most like basic kind of system people will look at. Something affects something in some way. And you might want to unpack the mechanisms of how that happens. You might want to quantify the magnitude of the impact. You want to see if it's a real impact, if it's causal. But something is something else. That's why gender inequality or post-crisis reconstruction or gene therapy, these things are not enough. Right? You're probably going to have to combine it with something in your topic neighborhood, right? Otherwise, you're just swimming in a vast ocean. I'd rather you be working in a lake than like an endless ocean. So what can this be? So this is where in your topic neighborhood, you're probably going to need to combine this to something else you're passionate about. Now, for example, if you don't know what to combine things with, one thing is just, for example, during COVID, you could combine COVID with everything and it would have been hot. Right now, you can combine AI with everything and it wouldn't be hot. That's kind of a lazy way to get on board with things, but that's one way that can help you get into your topic neighborhood. Another is to look at things that are debated. Oftentimes, if you see things that are hot and debated, even in public discourse in media, this probably means it might be something underneath that's unresolved in the underlying social science or even natural science. So you can get clues even from reading op-eds, newspaper pieces. Again, is that guaranteed? No, but it can stimulate some creativity for you. And the other way is to kind of forensically search around Google Scholar and see what's going on in these areas of debate and see what resonates with you. Now, I hope many of you will already come in and have something very clear. Like some of you might be interested in and have a more well-defined topic space. Like maybe I'm interested in gender inequalities in diabetes risks or post-crisis reconstruction after, I don't know, a military war, maybe an earthquake or some event, or similarly different kinds of gene therapies for all sorts of things. So, but what you can do, if you really are lost at sea, is I recommend going to Google Scholar and hunting around. And you'll find very quickly, if I put gender inequality, you probably get books, but you say, oh, I can link this to higher education. Oh, I could look at the workplace, sports media, feminist theories, also unequal pay, all sorts of stuff. And that'll already help you get into a better defined topic space. Once you've got that and you've connected this to something, right, some kind of X and some kind of Y, you're probably ready to go on to phase 2. And some of you may already be here, and so this is going to help you. So phase 2 is going to be testing and refining your topic. I'm going to take a breath and look in the chat and see if people have questions, comments, doubts. If you want to drop your topic here to look at it and have me go over it with you using and apply our systems to it, please feel free to do so in the chat. Really great opportunity to get my feedback. Paul is pointing out a needle exchange is not a partly friendly topic. Yeah, well, when you're at Yale School of Public Health, people are pretty nerdy. That's where I did my master's back in the day. But yeah, even there, that was stretching it a bit. I can see Edvin say, I'm a master's student in sociology. Right now, I'm writing my thesis about regional inequality in the youth labor market. And I was wondering if you have any tips for establishing a strong hypothesis. Perfect. This is, Edvin, I'm so glad you shared this. This is a great example of exactly what we're dealing with. You kind of got your topic neighborhood. Now you need to refine it further. And I'm going to give you some tools to do that. Okay. And so we'll use yours kind of as a tracer. Thank you for sharing. So you got regional inequality and youth labor market. Now, one thing that's a little bit unclear, right? This is a broad topic space, but this could go both ways the way you've set this up. You could be looking at, does inequality affect the labor market, or is the labor market affecting inequality outcomes? So you need the direction, and sometimes things can, especially in social science, you can have bidirectionality there. What I would suggest is well, you can look at both ways here. So youth labor market, right? There's going to be a set of things going on here that you can look at. So you can look at people who are not in education, employment, or training. This is a category called NEETs. That's sometimes covered a lot in the labor market. You can also look at just employment. You can look at productivity. So think about what all the labor market outcomes are that you can think of. And that'll give you some clues. And then regional inequality, you might do the same. I'm going to come back, though, to this in a second and show you how you can refine this and turn it into a hypothesis. So test and refine your topic. So here what you have to do is you need to do a couple things. So one, if you got a topic idea, you need to make sure you're not duplicating somebody else. And you're going to do this through searching, when you get a topic down, for something we call a conceptual nearest neighbor paper. You want to go kind of actively test your own hypothesis that what you're doing something that's already been done. So you want to go look for a paper, what we call a conceptual nearest neighbor paper, and that's kind of the paper that's the closest to yours. And you're going to use this paper to calibrate what gap you can fill and what value you can add to the debate. So this is a very important step, and ends in tears when people are try to publish and a reviewer comes back and says, "Oh, well, this has already been done. There's no value add here. There's no real novelty." So I don't want you to end in tears. Do this duplication test. The next thing I want you to do is I also want you to forecast your impact. So this is going to be a simple Google Scholar search to just see in your space like what kind of citations that you can get for your topic. But this is all well and good, but we still need to refine. So these are two tests that are going to help you validate. This is going to help you validate that your topic is viable and will have impact. I'll show you how to do these in a second, and we'll use Edvin's as a tracer here. But to get your topic defined, really well defined, we use something called a PICO DT model. And this is used a lot in public health and medicine, but applies to all fields. And this is going to force you, it's going to give you some control knobs that will kind of force you to have clarity on a topic. And if you don't, sometimes people go into phase 2 and they've already got this from phase 1, and sometimes it's the other way around. So sometimes the order of doing these tests can vary. But basically this PICO model, you're going to define the population that you're studying. You're going to look at an intervention or some kind of exposure that you're interested in. You might have a comparison group, and you're going to have some outcomes that you're looking at. And then you might, to further define this, define your design and the kind of time of study or your study period that you want to look at. And again, these create sort of control knobs to help you define your topic and get it right. So, for example, if we're looking at the regional inequality study, already what I was foreshadowing before here is like, well, what you're looking at the impact of what on what, what's the kind of impact of what on what, the X on Y. And here you said regional inequality in youth labor market. It's just too broad right now. You're still in topic space. We need to refine that into a PICO. So I'm going to make something up, and then we'll go test it. So suppose we want to look at youth unemployment. Now, in terms of, let's say, does youth unemployment lead to more regional inequalities? Regional inequalities in what, though? I don't know. Maybe income inequalities. Maybe you want to say that when youth are employed, it's a stabilizing force You could make an argument for this. If youth are employed, inequalities are lower because the youth spend in the economy that's there. Or maybe you want to say that if, right, there's high youth unemployment and the employment is more in older persons who spend money elsewhere, it doesn't help stimulate the regional economy. I don't know. I'm just making something up. But you do want to think carefully about how these two might relate to each other for your study. And the design, what you're doing is probably going to be quantitative. So you're probably going to have a secondary data analysis, and I'd encourage you to look for data sets that are already existing off the shelf. And your population is clearly you're looking at youth. So we could actually break this up. So we could you could even compare the effects of youth versus adult unemployment to see which is maybe more important for inequalities. But this is fine. So you've got a defined population here. So this is good. This is good. This is good. And when you have a PICO defined, you can turn this into a nice PICO, what I call a PICO leaking sentence that just puts together the ingredients of your topic. It'll start as a boring but very descriptive title. So it could just be like the impact of youth unemployment on regional income inequalities. Now you might want to specify this. Maybe you want to look in your population, right? The PICO gives you ideas about how to refine this. So maybe the population say, well, maybe I need to look in the UK or Germany or somewhere as a case study. Like this is kind of unclear where you want to do this. So the PICO is also going to help you because it's going to give you a heuristic for thinking about, well, what knobs can I dial in so this is not hopelessly broad? Okay, but let's suppose we wanted to look at the impact of youth unemployment on regional income inequalities in the UK. Cool. Let's go into Google Scholar and test that out. So just put in some broad things like youth unemployment and regional inequalities and see what comes up. And here we go. Some of them are just describing the magnitude of inequalities in youth labor market opportunity. That's also possible. Some are looking at education. Here's an example looking in Spain. Youth unemployment and inequalities, and this is a health outcome. This is optimizing for me a bit. Youth unemployment here. So this is an interesting paper. So you'd want to go find a paper that's kind of similar to yours. But here we go. So I can definitely see so what do I see here a little bit? Well, I see that these aren't getting a whole bunch of citations. Actually, it's not that hot an area. Like here was a paper that was published. Okay, it was 2025, but it's not really a huge debate going on right here. So this would be, to me, a signal that it's not that hot an area. This one's done okay. Let's see what this one did and tried to show. It said, this was looking at just tracking if inequalities in youth unemployment have changed pre and post economic crisis. So kind of a different research question. So I don't really, looking at this, if I were going to do this myself, I'd probably reject this if my goal was to publish, because it's failing on the debate criterion. There's just not that much going on that I'm going to be able to show that's important. I'm not seeing a huge value add in the gap. So we could pass the duplication test, but the impact's so weak, I think I would apply my time and energy into a higher yield topic. And one thing I always want you to do in the background is I want you to really get clarity on, sometimes we call this an alignment sequence, where you got a gap that lines up to your research question, or your research question, and it should line up to what you want to show. And a lot of you guys are doing research because you care about something very deeply. Your values have guided you into this space, and I have no problem making that explicit with passion. Right? There's this myth that scientists should be dispassionate robots. We're not. We use our values to help us define our research questions, why we care. But then when it comes to our methods, we run those through rigorous methods that are reproducible, so anybody could make our assumptions and come up with the same conclusions that we did. That's science. So sometimes there's this mistaken idea that you can't use your values, you need to strip that out. And I'd say that's got the wrong idea. That's actually getting it backwards. That's what our methods are exactly for. So just coming back to this, Edvin, let me know. I can see that you're saying thanks for the advice, that this is helpful. And you're saying, exactly. So you're already starting to refine this regional inequality, measuring good and bad regions for employment possibilities. Yeah, so you just use the PICO control knobs like I've set out, and kind of give me a sense of what you kind of want to show with this. So I would connect it to something. And you can see in the papers we looked at, they were all connecting it to something else. And again, make sure you get clarity on, is the inequality the outcome, or is it something that's causing some other outcome? So try to clarify your PICO. Paula says, the nuggets you share here on getting the topic right save a lot of pain in writing in final stages of seeking publication. Yeah, listen, guys, the big reason for rejection, biggest two reasons, are lack of fit with the journal, and that sometimes is reflective too of not having impact, not a lot going on, so the journal's not publishing a lot on it. And also that there's no novelty or no contribution. And just these two simple tests will avoid those rejections. Will help you nip in the bud these common reasons of rejection. What makes me so sad is when people have gone down a path on a topic, they do technically fantastic analysis on something that is a dead end. And it kind of breaks my heart to see somebody pour 3 months, often more. I've seen people pouring years into a dead-end topic. That dead end can be okay. Maybe the end is just to tick the box for your master's. So Edvin, you might look at this and say, all I care about is the master's. I just need to show I have methodological competence for my thesis. Great. If your goal is not to publish, that's fine. You have a different end. But if your end is to publish well and get on that proverbial fast track, you got to get these nuts and bolts of your topic right. Now, what happens is a lot of people, when they win the supervisor lottery, well, their supervisor's already in a hot topic neighborhood. Right? They're a top researcher. They're already there. They're going to hand you a branch of their research. They've helped you get this right already. And when they do that, they already know what's out there. They are they are a cheat code to getting you to a winning topic. And this is kind of why the rich stay richer in science. And there's these powerful effects of working often with prominent supervisors. But what we've done here is created a system so that you can short circuit that logic and reap the benefits yourself without having to personally win the supervisor lottery. Okay, some of you are asking me, okay, well and good, so how do I find a research gap? I'm glad you asked that. AJ is here asking, how do I find the research gap? I want to work on tribes of India. Well, when you're working on tribes of India, you're still in phase 1 here, in kind of broad topic neighborhood land. And that's not enough. Like, what do you want to show? So I know in India, there's been work on, say, social movements, like Naxalites and insurgent groups or others, and how they have been engaging with different groups to kind of substitute for state provision and win people to their cause. So these insurgent movements were providing vaccinations for children to try to get people to come to them. Anyway, I'm not saying you have to do that, but if tribes, right, there's things around stigma, around untouchable tribes and groups, and how encrusted poverty is in that. Is that breaking down? Is it improving over time? So when you take, I want to work on tribes of India, you gotta do more than that. Now, one thing you could do here. So here's where AI can work and where it can't work. So for phase 1, AI can 100% help you in the topic neighborhood. It won't tell you what you're passionate about. Only you can determine that. But it can help you see if there's a debate going on. And so I'm totally okay with popping into AI. It's one of the prompts that we do recommend, and exploring topic neighborhood. What AI is not good at is these ladder tests. AI is not good at necessarily refining your PICO. But in an exploratory phase, it can be useful. So for this exploratory phase, and AJ, I'm glad you mentioned this. Exploratory phase, I encourage you guys to use mainly Google Scholar, mainly conversations with colleagues, supervisors, and mentors, and really lock in these 3 areas before going on to phase 2. And ideally, you can have a sense after phase 1 already of something you'd really like to show or care about. For me, right, when I was in this phase 1, I really wanted to show that needle exchange programs were helping solve HIV spread. Right? So I had that in. And then phase 2 was figuring out, well, what's the gap? What's been done well? What's been done less well? to get to that space. So you're trying to find the gap, but you haven't honed in on your topic neighborhood yet. So it's actually a little bit premature to find your research gap. You're going to be lost at sea. Now, there are some tried and true strategies to find research gaps in your area. And one of those that's very easy is go into papers and go look at the limitation sections. They're going to say what wasn't done in their paper and what things might need to be done for future research. So I really encourage you this once you're in phase 2. So kind of this gap finding exercise. Gap finding in phase 2. What can that look like? You can look at the limitations section. You can go to review articles and see their recommendations for future research. And people actually do set out in review articles, as a point of review articles, to set out what hasn't been done and needs to be done. So these can be 2 very quick ways that in 5 minutes you can go find some gaps. Again, don't go read the whole articles of these things. Go look at some recent articles that were highly cited, check out their limitation section, and check out some review articles and see the recommendations made for future research. Okay. Guys, questions about this process? Is this something that you feel like you could do? Does this make sense? Have I completely confused you? Let me know. It's something that we spend a lot of time on. Once you get through phase 1 and phase 2, I encourage you to consider an optional phase 3. And I especially recommend this for all dissertations. This comes back actually to the supervisor alignment before, but get buy-in from your colleagues or co-authors. They're going to give you a sanity check on whether your topic's any good or not, and whether they're willing to support you on it. So I see some people pick a topic, go down a rabbit hole, come back and their supervisors are like, what's this? This is not what I want at all. Don't do that, guys. Don't want to see that happen to you, because you will lose a lot of time. By the way, I mean, this is something we do. We have topic triage workshops on a regular basis inside our private mentorship communities, where we actually will look at this and go in more depth to diagnose your topic, so that, when with any topic there's going to be some trade-offs, that you can have more clarity before you embark on that journey and go down your topic, to know that your topic's solid and on point before doing all that work and then get slammed with rejections later. And I hate when people come after getting a series of desk rejects and have to tell them, like, well, this paper was unworkable from the start. That's just the worst conversation ever. So I don't want to have that conversation with you guys. So follow these steps. But yeah, phase 3, get buy-in from your colleagues or co-authors as a sanity check can be useful. And that links to the tip of this week, which is supervisor alignment. So even make sure, ideally you're going to be in a topic neighborhood that fits with your supervisor in some way. All right, so if Edvin's doing regional inequalities and the labor market, and the supervisor is looking at, I don't know, a critical discourse analysis of sports events, good luck. Right? And believe me, I see this happen all the time. I've seen people have a supervisor who's a doctor, and what that doctor knows is kind of lab work and science, and their topic is just somebody they were assigned in the department, and their topic is something that's related to, say, educational inequalities, and just worlds apart. But you could bridge them. You could bridge them if you said, look at educational inequalities in medical training. There might be some bridges you can creatively build there. But this is I'm not exaggerating. I see this all the time, and it's because researchers are just, when they're starting out, they might come out, especially from masters where they got grades and they did everything right, and suddenly they're not ready for this shift as a PhD, where you're on your own. Figure it out. And often it does feel like you've been pushed off the deep end, and suddenly it hits you. There is no step-by-step guide or formula. We are creating the systems to help plug that gap and make it more clear, as I hope you can see here. Okay, MK. Oh, hey, MK. Nice to have you join us again. Welcome back. Again, if you're on Team Replay, let me know. I do reply to all comments, and that does help us reach other people who might not otherwise benefit from our support. Okay, I was trying to show the chat on the stream. That didn't quite quite work. All right, I'm going to take one video question, let you guys cogitate on this system a bit. Have you ever seen anything like this? Has anybody, I'm curious to know, let me know in the chat, has anybody ever shared any training with you on how to find a topic? Or were you, like I commonly see, either handed a topic and you weren't sure about it, or were you just like, hey, go back and come up with a topic and propose it to me? Again, just left on your own to figure it out. Let me know. Definitely other people in the community love to see that, because so often, especially people are doing like part-time or remote PhDs or research, they don't have that sense of community. They're just trying to, again, do this on their own. All right, I've got one video submission here I want to take. So let's pull this on.
Hi there, my name.
Okay, so this is from Ahmad. Let's see what Ahmad has asked this week. So hang on.
Hi there, my name is Ahmed Siddiqui. I'm sitting in India right now. I am one of the research scholars into the program of PhD, and I am desperately looking for an option where I can publish 2 papers into an active Scopus index journals. And for that reason, I've got 2 manuscripts ready with me. The only thing is that I need good mentoring where I would be able to publish the paper to any of the journals which are not asking me to go for any kind of APC. That's very important. I don't have funds with me. So if you can mentor me in this aspect, then I would love to subscribe with your service. Do let me know about this thing. I'm looking forward to a positive response from you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that with me. We've got a lot of valuable resources on my channel that are going to help you with this. Some are not on my channel just because they involve more intimate working together. So there's only so much that I can release because some of it does involve real human feedback. But okay, so first couple things. It sounds like you got 2 manuscripts complete. That's great. I hope you've done some of the tests that we talked about today to ensure their publishability before going too far. So I don't know, but I'm going to assume that you have. This is often, though, a scenario where people come back to me and then I actually see the manuscripts and I ask them to say, well, what was the gap? The first thing I look for in the intro, and it's not well defined or established, and it could be the disappearing gap because it's not there, and that's a problem. But okay, for the APCs, this is a big deal. This is a problem that a lot of researchers have, so I'm glad that you asked this so we can address it. Let me pull out our guidance on precisely how we deal with this. And let me share my screen again. I'm gonna shift the screen and share a different screen. Let's replace this and go here. And I'm gonna go into our course here, library. We've got a navigating the journal submission process library, and in here we've got a worksheet. And so in trying to find your journal, we've got a step-by-step guide of where you can find the right journals for you. But you've mentioned is an important consideration that we have everybody look at on APCs and the open access policy. We can go through a live journal too, if that would be helpful to you, to show you how to do this. But on every journal's website, you're going to find disclosure about publishing options. And so, for example, right, if you don't have funding, you can see if they have a non-open access submission option called a subscription model. If that model exists at the journal, and this does exist in my broad estimate about 1 out of 3 journals, and does cover a lot of Q1 journals across fields, there you don't have to pay. So that is a very viable option, and I would definitely be including these on your list of target journals as you optimize for the other considerations we have on picking your journal to submit to. The other thing is there's often many journals beyond this subscription model have specific waivers or exemptions if the author is from a developing countries. So even if they don't have this non-open access submission option or the subscription model, this is sometimes there because they have big institutional budgets, in some cases, to offer these waivers. And that would apply to you because you're based in India. The final one is to check if your university or country, or also possibly one of your co-authors, has an agreement. So for example, I'm based in Italy, and Italian institutions have agreements with Springer journals that the APCs are covered from kind of a block grant. That's kind of above my pay grade. They handle it. I don't have to come out of pocket for that. I've got co-authors at Cambridge. They have different budgets and pockets to pay for the APCs. So it's always nice for me when I have some co-authors from Cambridge that gets that covered. So these are 3 very viable strategies that can help you. So yes, the AP system right now is deeply unfair, and it definitely punishes those who don't have resources, but it doesn't mean that you're doomed, you can't publish. A lot of our researchers in the community have no problem with this. It just means it's something that you got to think about and have a proactive strategy for dealing with. So you don't get any surprises. One of the worst is I get these emails from students saying, I need help paying my APC, my manuscript's accepted, but I can't pay the APC. It's like, well, I mean, I don't have money like coming out of my pockets to help you with that. No one does. Like, this is something you needed to think about beforehand, before you ever even submit it to the journal. And I think some people click it and say, yeah, I'll pay the APC charge, and end up wasting their time and wasting the journal's time when they don't actually have any funding at the end of it. And that's just, well, I understand it's a mistake, but it's deeply flawed to waste the reviewer's time, waste the editor's time. It's like saying, I'm going to pay for a service, and you start getting the service, and you have no intention of ever being able to pay for it. So, honestly, that's not okay. There's a flaw in our training that people weren't taught this, but that's also deeply problematic. Thanks for sharing that with me, and I do hope that is helpful to you and how you can go about this. Guys, if you want me to look at an actual journal and show you where you can find this information, let me know in the chat and we can do that. We've got time in the session. So Edvin says, I went with something my supervisor says is understudied. Right, so Edvin, this might be an interpretability thing. You might want to get more clarity. This is kind of an understudied topic neighborhood, but like get clarity on what exactly is understudied. Is it like what is driving regional inequalities? Is it what is driving youth unemployment? So you need kind of the basis of the causal logic they're setting out. So I suspect he may have said something to you that he or she thought was very clear, and maybe even more clear than maybe what you've received and kind of been thinking about. So this definitely happens. I'll say I'm interested in looking at the dynamics around regional market inequalities and how those are how those are driven by youth unemployment. Well, there's a direction of causality that's baked into that that I'm saying. It's subtle, and you might miss it if you're not experienced in research, where you might just hear, oh, I'm looking at regional inequalities and youth labor markets, but you've ended up going too broad and missed the causal chain that was actually baked into what he was trying to pass to you. So if that's the case, and he's handing you a topic, Edvin, I would go get clarity on it, and I would try to get it into a PICO model so that you've got that crystal clear clarity to avoid confusion going forward. MK says, I was told to figure out the topic from a literature review after finding gaps. I did not start with a topic and then do a literature search. Yep, this is a perfectly viable strategy. You can definitely do a lit review. You can do a broad lit review. So there's 2 reasons to do a lit review here. So typically, the lit review inside your paper is going to be a strategic argument for why your paper needs to exist. And the same with your dissertation. If you're doing a literature review as an exercise to find a topic and a gap, don't worry about writing it. Be willing to throw away everything you've done and just treat it. The whole literature review process is sometimes the way, right? Because there is no system. So sometimes what's going on with that literature review is that is the method supervisors say, oh, find your topic, do a lit review. That is a different goal. That is a fundamentally different aim for the lit review than to say what a literature review has to do, which is make a strategic argument for your study. What do I mean by that? It's that the literature review that you do, once you already have your study topic, will read very differently than a literature review that you're doing to try to find a topic. I hope that makes sense. So implicitly, what they're trying to get you to do is something that broadly mimics this process and kind of like hash it out by doing a review. Is because supervisors don't have a tool or system that they can pass to you and say, here's how you find a topic. And that can lead to a lot of frustration and endless circling. So, MK, I hope you landed on a topic. Happy to share your topic here. Have you landed on one? Are you feeling confident about yours? But But did you find some gaps? That's really good. Abu Bakar says, I always appreciate when you discuss identifying gaps. I think they are fundamental in the research, in writing research projects, dissertation, or thesis. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Abu Bakar. Absolutely. It's foundational, and that's why the gap is the anchor to our entire alignment sequence that we use for helping guide researchers through their dissertations and theses. And when things get out of alignment, sometimes it does trace back to the original gap, or sometimes it's that gap's not connected very well to the research question, or sometimes the research question has drifted from what somebody actually wants to show, or their hypothesis, or it doesn't even sync to the methods. Okay, so Andrea asked, could you look at Hague Journal on the Rule of Law and see what the publications costs are? Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look. Hague Journal on Rule of Law. Okay, it's a Springer journal, so this would be one that would be covered, right? Oh, look, it even says here, right? Funding is available for open access publishing. So this will pop up if you have institutional agreements. Let's see here. So we'll go for authors, fees and funding. And here we go. Authors who publish open access are required to pay an APC, subject to VAT, a journal pricing FAQ. So, here we go. Authors can also choose to publish under a subscription publishing model. No APC charges apply. Both will be offered after accepted. So this one has a subscription model. You can submit here and not have to pay for it. Or if you have institutional funding, you'll get it otherwise. So you'll have that covered. But yeah, Andrea, so this would be one that if you're concerned about APCs, I would say totally good to put this on your list as a target journal. So I'm really glad you asked that to us, Andrea, so we could do this quick demo here of how that works. We have JHGB. I realize that most basics or wider gaps need a strong and shared method. As far as otherwise, you might look like a self-referenced or even worse, psychotic researcher, i.e. brain code. I don't know who brain code is, but yeah, a lot of people do self-cite. It's like Stuckler et al. In 2024 said a whole bunch of rubbish, so we're going to correct those idiots. Yeah, having a conversation with yourself is not great, guys. The one other thing to say on this, the median number of citations for papers in the first 2 years is 0. So even if you publish, right, people haven't forecasted the impact very well, and they're getting 0 citations. There's more to life than just getting the paper published. A lot of you guys are doing this because you want impact. You want to bend the arc of history in some way. You want to make a difference. You want to amplify your voice. You want to do something meaningful. So yeah, it's important to take a step to figure out what impact your paper might have before you go deep on this journey. So definitely. Emoji guy 123 says thank you. Andrea says great, thank you. Cool, guys. Yeah, I know. I see this. It's interesting with the APCs. Again, it's another thing you got to think about, but is not once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. It's kind of clear and obvious, but it's just not taught or shown as one. Again, in this land of these very practical things, you've got to be aware of as a researcher that it's like you could figure it out on your own, or we could just show you. What do you think is going to be faster? And here we go. Jeff says research gap. Oh, hey, Jeff. Good to see you with us. Jeff's in one of our communities. Jeff says research gap. If there's no Prisma-based systematic scoping review in a topic, but there are other literature reviews, is that research gap distinction good enough for high-impact journals? I mean, I would validate that. There's a judgment call. Is this gap important? And that can sometimes be hard to judge when you're starting out. So, for example, if you take a study and say, okay, the gap is that this was never done in Ethiopia, or this was never done in, in Brazil. Well, sometimes that extension, that could be a real gap, that population gap. It's never been done there before. But doesn't mean that the very high impact Western journals are going to want to publish that. They might say, well, why does that add value to our readers? It's just that you showed something in Brazil. Matters for the Brazilians, matters for the Ethiopians, but may not merit publishing in top creme de la creme journals to where everybody in a wide general readership needs to be interested in it. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but typically you'll have to explain a gap like that, what that case of Ethiopia or Brazil, so how that speaks to a bigger international audience as something important. So, Jeff, coming back to your question, there's a judgment about the value of the research gap, whether it's a big gap or a little gap. And I'd encourage you to get feedback on that to help you calibrate what's going on. What you can see is that your conceptual nearest neighbor paper, that your success, the closest correlate of your success is going to be that conceptual nearest neighbor paper. So that paper that's most similar to yours got 0 citations. Guess what? You're probably going to get 0 citations. So bear that part in mind. MK says, I wish I knew about systematic review before my PhD proposal. Would have helped me get better topic with confidence. Yeah, I love systematic review for that reason, because it will spit out something that's publishable, and it will spit out a set of gaps. So it's awesome. Where instead, if you do like I'm doing this lit review with the purpose of muddling around, figuring stuff out, trying to find a gap, it's not publishable. You're probably gonna have to do your lit review twice. We got another good question from Anjali. Anjali says, I want to publish in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, but failed every time. Is it about the topic? If yes, then what kind of topic should I target? Thanks for sharing this. I wouldn't know or be able to say until I look at what you got. So the first gate is getting past the desk and sent for review. If you get past that gate and you've been sent out for review and then you get rejected, it probably wasn't the topic. If you keep getting desk rejected, it's probably the topic or something glitching with your cover letter in articulating the value of the topic. I wouldn't be able to know unless I look at it directly, and I'd encourage you to submit with this workshop to the workshop here, or submit to, we run 5 workshops a week in our private mentorship community. So if you want more rapid feedback in a private setting with a very committed, highly motivated group of researchers, tap into that and get feedback here in the next within the next couple days. So if you let me know in the chat too, I can help you diagnose what's going on there. But if you do want to improve your topic, I'd encourage you to at least stress test your topic with the steps that I've mapped out here. Find that conceptual nearest neighbor paper, and that will already give you some clues about what might be going on. What if we used other field methods for a research gap? So, Binary, I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, you'd have a methodological kind of gap, just to say in this field, this method hasn't been used, so I'm going to apply this method. But what's more important than just dropping the method in is like, what's the payoff to that method? Is it able to reveal something new? Is it able to produce new facts or data that enable the field to grow? By the way, this idea that I'm meta referring to is called sometimes called a Lactosian research program, and basically, some research you can imagine falsifies a hypothesis and kind of shuts things down, where other kinds of ideas of a research program, good science, can actually grow and build things. Anyway, I don't want to get too far into it in philosophy of science, but I digress. So sometimes the high impact journals are about Western dominion rather than the quality. Yeah, I mean, look, for example, if you publish an American Journal of Preventive Medicine, it is American Journal for a reason. And if you look at the content of what's in that journal, it's mostly American stuff. Same if I look at South African Medical Journal, well, it's mostly South African stuff. And we shouldn't consider that too surprising. There is it's just a fortunate nature of power and knowledge, and there is that dominance. So I do encourage you guys, if you want wide international impact, to tap into big debates that are wide and international and ensure you have that relevance. Sometimes when you shrink to safety and narrow your topic, you actually narrow your debate in the broader interest in the topic that you could choose. Guys, I feel like we've covered a ton of ground today, and I love hearing from you. So again, like I said, I read and reply to every comment. Those likes really help the algorithm to reach more people. You never know who is struggling with their topic and needs to hear this message right now, to save unnecessary hardship. If you are interested in exploring if we could be a good fit to work together, we've got a short trial up here if you want to see if you're fit for more intimate working together. I'm going to put the other QR code on the screen for that. Just scan this QR code here, and that will help you find what the right fit could be for you. But if you want to join some like-minded people like Jeff and Paula and some others who contributed today, really encourage you to check this out. I'm really proud of what we're trying to do and achieve, and would love to have you with us. So with that, guys, I want to wish all of you a very good, refreshing weekend. We will be back next week. As always, we are going to be lining up. I'm still locking the dates. We're going to be doing a session on PhD by publication, what I believe is the most exciting, innovative, and progressive route to a PhD that solves a lot of problems in where PhD systems are breaking down right now. If you're interested in going back and watching that was one of our past live sessions. I can't remember if it was number 36 or 35, about why the PhD system is breaking. You'll also see on my channel, I'm going to be, a lot of my content on my channel is how to do things. Increasingly, I'm going to be rolling out more content, and this is based on requests for you, that digs into things like the academic underpay paradox, or that goes into, helps you understand so you can better navigate why the publishing system is broken right now, and give you some different frames and lenses for even better navigating the confusing world of knowledge production that we all live in. So yeah, several questions. Anjali, I see your other ones. Save these. Guys, I'd encourage you to. I'll put the QR code here. Send me a video question. Guys, I cover these every time in the session. You send it to me, I'm going to cover it. It's that simple. If you want my personal feedback, 100% free and valuable, that's what this session is for. This is your time. I'm here to help you. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of it. It's not often you can get an ex-Harvard professor who's mentored, many researchers who have gone on to become professors and tenured professors themselves. Just like saying, hey, I'm here, happy to help. So, yeah, that's our goal, is to take your intent to do high-impact research and turn it into action and real results. So definitely click this QR code. I'm doing these lives. My goal this year for 2026 is to do these lives every week and cover as many of your questions and topics that you want to hear from me as possible. So with that, guys, great weekend, everyone, and I will see you all